Good afternoon, Trinity, United Church of Christ, Gary. I am so excited that you have joined us for yet again another exciting, encouraging, fantastic Bible study series on today at 12 noon. Please, 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 family. I know I say this every Tuesday, but today I mean it. Today, and I'm not kidding, today I mean it. Today I'm so excited about what we are going to be highlighting over the next month and a half. Today is the day we kick off our brand new Bible study series on this awesome, wonderful topic. I hope you have an opportunity to grab this book. I'm letting you know the author of this book is hot, 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 hot. Imagine me in these very moments putting up the little fire emoji signs right now across your screen. This author is hot. This topic is hot. Oh, this series over the next month and a half is hot. Now, I know what you're wondering. You're saying to yourself, Danielle, what are you talking about? I'm so glad you asked. Grab pen and paper quickly, family, quickly, beloved. Grab pen and paper because there is this amazing Bible study series that we're going to delve into starting on today. This book, family, please, 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 family, you have to get this. You have to get this book, family. You have to get this book. This book is entitled Homecoming. Overcome fear and trauma to reclaim your whole authentic self by the illustrious Dr. Tamar Bryant. I tell you, this book is a lifesaver. This book is a book that you can read and won't be able to put down. This book will have you flipping the pages, wanting more, desiring more. And so for the next month and a half, on Tuesdays at 12 noon, we are going to have some fun exploring this book. I'm telling you, beloved, this is not a time you will want to miss. You will be sitting on the edge of your seat during our Tuesday afternoon Bible study saying, wow, this is a blast. So do me a favor, family, grab this book, whatever bookstore or book vendor online you support. Please, 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 please grab this book. There is an awesome Black-owned bookstore that I just want to show some love to. If you need to grab this book, I want to invite you to check out a Black-owned bookstore by the name of Semicolon. It's based out of Chicago. Feel free to Google it. It's called Semicolon. Support a Black-owned business, right? Support a Black-owned business. Go to Semicolon Bookstore. You can Google them for their official website and grab your copy of Homecoming. Grab your copy of Homecoming, family, right? Support a Black-owned bookstore. We are delving into this book during our time together. Now, I know what you're going to ask. You're going to say, but Reverend Danielle, this looks pretty interesting, but why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this? Why? Why are we talking about this for Bible study? I know. We are talking about this book because there's an important dynamic that we want to spend some time focusing on and highlighting. What do we usually talk about during our time together, during Bible study? We usually talk about a particular book of the Bible. We usually talk about a particular biblical theme, if you will. We usually talk about a Bible story in particular. Yes. We have a blast, right? We have a blast talking about particular theological topics and theological beliefs. This book is based on psychology, though. Yes, I know. This book is based on psychology. And I know what you're saying to yourself. Well, psychology has nothing to do with the church. Psychology has nothing to do with theology. Psychology doesn't have anything to do with spiritual issues. And we like to say, yes, it does, beloved. Yes, it does. This image that you see on your screen, usually we're used to having conversations, hanging out in our purple circle, talking about things related to our faith in particular. But what we've learned, what we've discovered is that we are integrated beings as people of African descent. We have different parts that inform us, right? And so if you notice on this image, you see not only a purple circle, but you see a blue circle and a green circle. It's because we believe as people of African descent, we're not only impacted by our spirituality, our faith, our soul, our theology, but we're also impacted by things that we wrestle with that impact us physically, impact our body, impact those issues that we are grappling with in society today that impact us socially, right? We also believe that we are impacted by, hanging out in that green circle, our mind, our emotional state, our life meaning, and our purpose. And so as people of African descent, we just can't hang out in a purple circle talking about faith and theology. We are fully integrated people in mind, body, and spirit. There is a popular phrase or understanding that says, when you're sad in spirit, this impacts your body and this impacts your mind. When you are going through some physical health challenges in your body, this impacts your mind and your soul or your spirit. When you are wrestling with some things psychologically or emotionally, when you're wrestling with what's my life meaning and purpose, we generally say this impacts your spirit and your body as well. And so all three of these circles, if you will, are attached together, are fully integrated. We cannot compartmentalize parts of our being. As people of African descent, all of our parts are interrelated, which means when I'm sad in my mind, I'm gonna have physical ailments, or my spirit is gonna be a bit disconnected. And so by having a conversation about psychology and things we grapple with in our mind, that is a part of theology. That is a part of spirituality and faith. A popular text that I'm going to invite you to grapple with as we discuss this book over the next month and a half is Romans chapter 12 and 2. Romans chapter 12 and 2. Family, I hope you have pen and paper. I hope you have pen and paper handy. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. The Apostle Paul once says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Apostle Paul, even though he is this apostle that speaks these wonderful belief systems theologically and about faith and about God and about Jesus, Apostle Paul understood the power of mental health, the power of psychological health, the power of emotional health. And so one day, Apostle Paul says to the church of Rome, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's not enough just to experience transformation in your body or spirit. You also have to be transformed mentally, because even during these biblical days, even Apostle Paul understood that there is a direct correlation between mind, body, and spirit. And so we're going to have some fun, beloved, talking about psychology and the ways in which particular psychological themes impact our spirit and also impact our body. And so this makes for an awesome, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Bible study for us to grapple with on today and throughout the next month and a half. And so in this book, Homecoming, by our beloved sister, Dr. Tama Bryant. There's some wonderful dynamics, theories, thoughts that she highlights. Now, before I move into talking about particular thoughts she highlights in the beginning chapter of her book, I first want to give you some background information on our sister. Who is Dr. Tama Bryant? Oh, please write her name down. First name is spelled T-H-E-M-A. T-H-E-M-A. Last name Bryant, B-R-Y-A-N-T. Dr. Tama Bryant, that's how it's pronounced, Tama, is an ordained clergy in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the AME Church, right? You may know her because of some interesting facts. Number one, she is a trendsetter. She was just named the president of the APA. The APA stands for the American Psychological Association. Yes, that's right. Just this year, she was installed as president of the American Psychological Association. Not only is she an ordained clergy of the AME Church, but she's also a licensed professional clinical psychologist. That's right, that's right, that's right. We also know her because of who she is related to. Her father is the illustrious Reverend Dr. John Bryant, famous, prolific, notable bishop of the AME Church. Her brother is also popular. He is also a pastor in Atlanta, Georgia, of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we understand that our sister is a clinical psychologist, and one of her passions is she loves to talk psychology in the Black church, right? Given that her father is a pastor, given that her brother is a pastor, given that she herself is an ordained clergy, she believes her ministry is all about psychology and theology and the wedding of these two wonderful topics. And so please, family, check out her book. Please, please, please grab her book, grab her book, grab her book, grab her book, grab her book. We are in this book during our time together. And as a supplemental resource, we want to also invite you to check out her podcast. That's right. She has a podcast. If you love podcasts, I'm telling you, you are going to love her podcast. It's called The Homecoming Podcast with Dr. Tama. The Homecoming Podcast with Dr. Tama. I'm telling you, this is a podcast that will bless your life. It is a supplemental material or audio visual that you want to check out while you're also reading the book, right? So if you can't get enough of this book and you just want more, please, please, please check out this podcast. I'm telling you, family, you are going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Now, let's jump into our text, if you will. Let's jump into it. Guess what I love? Guess what I love? Guess what's my favorite song of all time? You want to know what's my favorite song of all time? Oh, my favorite song of all time is Home by Stephanie Mills. I remember it because one of my favorite movies of all time is The Wiz. I love The Wiz, right? And there's one particular song, the whole soundtrack is like bomb, but there's one particular song that is my favorite, and it's Home by Stephanie Mills, right? The backdrop is Dorothy. The backdrop is Dorothy is longing to go home, right? She's longing to find home and reconnect with her family. That's the backdrop of the story, according to The Wiz, right? And so Stephanie Mills pens this particular song called Homecoming. And just for a moment, I want you to listen to the lyrics, or after our time together, I want you to play the song and pay close attention to these particular lyrics. When I think of home, I think of a resting place, a place where there's peace, quiet, and serenity. And that's where some of my friends have gone. Friends who have traveled with me through my wonderful experiences in Oz, a journey I'll never forget. And then as she began singing the song, here are some lyrics that should stand out. When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall grass bend into leaning. Suddenly the raindrops that fall, they have a meaning. Sprinkling the scene makes it all clean. When I think of home, maybe there's a chance for me to go back now that I have some direction. It sure would be nice to be back at home where there's love and affection. And just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time, in my life to grow up. Time to be a friend and let me start all over again. These lyrics are thought-provoking and challenging. Please, 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 family, after our Bible study time together, I just would invite you to play that song. You can check it out for free on YouTube. Simply type Home by Stephanie Mills. Next week, we're going to kick off our Bible study by playing that song so we can reflect on the song together. But please, please, please check it out. Check it out, check it out, check it out. This becomes one of the bases for the beginning introduction of our book on today. Our beloved Dr. Tamar Bryant says, in some sense, we all have wrestled with something that Dorothy wrestled with in The Wiz. She says, we've all wrestled with at some point feeling disconnected from home and longing to go back home. All of us have felt disconnected or homesick, if you will. All of us know exactly what Dorothy is battling with. All of us know exactly what Dorothy is experiencing in The Wiz. Think of a time, beloved, as you have pen and paper to journal some thoughts as I talk. Think of a time when you have felt homesick. What was that time? When was that time? When did it feel like you yearned to go back home the most? What was happening in your life at that time? What were the particular details when you experienced a longing to go back home? Who was around you when you longed to go back home? Beloved, all of us have felt homesick. Dr. Tamar Bryant says, the act of feeling homesick is an act of experiencing a disconnection, if you will. That's right, a disconnection. Write that word down. Throughout our time together, we're going to be highlighting disconnection and the power of disconnection. We're going to be grappling with, what does disconnection look like? What does disconnection feel like? How do we grapple with disconnection? Disconnection is going to be a key word during our time together. Dr. Bryant says, first and foremost, there is so many elements of life that cause us to feel disconnected, cause us to want to long for home. There are two particular dynamics that she wants to highlight first. First, she says, we long for a home that has peace. We long to go back to something that might be different from what we grew up in. Let me give you an example. Oftentimes, when we use the term going back home, or we highlight this phrase going back home, first, we're making a declaration that home is a place where peace exists, love exists, joy exists. She says, but it's important to highlight that home, the physical home we know of, may not be that for everybody. There's three types of neglects, abuse, or dysfunctions or traumas that people experience in their home today. She says, for many people, home has been a place of trauma. Home has been a place of trauma, maybe because there's been abuse that has happened in that home, or there's been neglect that has happened in that home, or there's been household dysfunction that has happened in that home. And so sometimes we long for a place that is home that is different from the home we were raised in, different from the home we actually unfortunately experienced growing up. Home may not be the home of our mother or father. Home may be another space and place. Maybe our home where we experienced abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, and other forms of trauma was our home of our mom and dad. But maybe we long to go to the home of grandma or auntie, because that home was the home of peace, love, joy, acceptance. Maybe home what we longed for was the extended community's home, because our immediate family's home was a place of pain. And so Dr. Bryan says disconnection, one form of it, can be when we feel disconnected from the home of our biological parents. And now we long for, yearn for, desire the home of an extended family member. Maybe we long for, desire the home of someone in the community or neighborhood that we grew up in. Maybe we had more love, safety that existed in this home. Another dynamic that our sister points out is another trauma that exists is trauma not only that happens in our home, but trauma that happens in our community or environment around our home. Maybe the community or the environment where our home was located caused us trauma. And so now we feel a sense of disconnection, not only just from what's happening inside of our household, but we may feel a disconnection from what's happening in the community or the environment of our home. So Dr. Tama says, sometimes people feel disconnected from their home because of where it's located, because of the environment of their home, and they long for a new home, a new home that exists in a healthy community, or a new home that exists in a particular neighborhood or environment or atmosphere free of climate crisis or natural disasters. And so there's a disconnection because I need to find a new home. A new home where my child maybe won't be the victim of gang violence. A new home where I won't be victimized by wildlife or food insecurities or food deserts or wildlife and smoke, tornadoes or hurricanes or earthquakes. And so when we think about home, first and foremost, we have to talk about the ways in which, unfortunately, home has not been a safe space for many people, given maybe what's happening inside the home or given what's happening around the home in the external environment. She says, and this is what can cause us disconnection. Another dynamic she highlights is you may have grown up in a wonderful home where there was peace, love, and joy. You may have grown up in a home that was in a healthy community or a healthy environment. You may have grown up in a home where there was no external negative sociological forces. But what if, as you ventured away from home, now a life crisis hit? Maybe while journeying away from this place and space of peace, now while traveling on a yellow brick road to Oz, you have experienced calamities of all sorts. Maybe you've experienced being terminated from a job. Maybe you've experienced divorce. Maybe you've experienced police brutality or violence while you were outside of your home. Maybe you moved to a new city or state where it seems as if everything is going wrong. Dr. Tamar Bryan says, life crisis also creates disconnection. So disconnection doesn't only come from maybe negativity in your home or around your home, but disconnection also can occur when this place of peace that you grew up in, that you became accustomed to, is no more because you've journeyed off. You started your own life, you went off to college, you got married, you moved to another city and state, and now all hell has broke loose. Now life stressors have taken a toll on you, your mind, your body, and your spirit. Please, beloved, write this down. Life stressors, Dr. Tamar Bryan highlights, is the second piece that causes disconnection. Disconnection is caused from the trauma of life stressors. And in some sense, she begins to highlight, in some sense, we end up building up an armor, a protective barrier, if you will, when we become sad, despondent, depressed. We build up walls, we build up an armor to protect ourselves. And unfortunately, this is not good, because this wall, this barrier, further disconnects us. This wall, this barrier further disconnects us from connecting back to home. She says, so the purpose of life is, number one, to become open to reflecting on what are those things that might have existed in our home that were not healthy. So one reflective question for us to grapple with today is, as you do an inventory of your life, what particular traumas existed in your household? Abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. She says it's so important to become self-aware about that. Number two, she says it's so important to become self-aware about what were the particular traumas that existed in community, in the atmosphere or environment around your home. It's so important to become self-aware about that. She says it's so very important to do inventory of what did home look like. If home was unhealthy, the second question you want to reflect on is, what new ways do you want to craft home for yourself now? That's right. She says the good news is there is hope. There is hope. The good news is if you grew up in a home with abuse, neglect, or household dysfunction, if you grew up in a particular community or environment where there is terrible sociological conditions, if you grew up in a particular atmosphere, environment where there is unhealthy climate, air, water, hurricanes, tornadoes, the good news for you is you can reestablish or recreate a new home for yourself, where maybe you need to disconnect from particular family members that are unhealthy. Maybe you need to consider developing a plan to move into a new space physically, a new city, a new state that might be a healthy environment, for you. Maybe you need to develop a plan of action where you do research on what are particular cities, states where healthy air exists or healthy water that's not contaminated exists. What are the new homes that you want to recreate so that you can feel connected and no longer disconnected in mind, body, or spirit? It's so important to become self-aware and then to create an action plan. Next, our sister says, when we feel disconnected, we end up engaging in unhealthy behaviors. And so we have to resist engaging in unhealthy behaviors and practice good self-care. She says we engage in unhealthy behaviors when we feel disconnected, like drinking too much alcohol or engaging in drugs, cocaine, heroin, or engaging in sexual promiscuity, or engaging in overworking and not resting, engaging in overfunctioning, a desire to always stay busy. That's right. She highlights that when we feel disconnected, we not only engage in activities that we think are bad, that we know are bad, like overeating or drinking too much, engaging in drugs and alcohol. She says, but the myth about disconnection is we think doing too much good is not a form of disconnection and it's actually healthy. She says that's a myth. That's wrong. She says people who feel disconnected, they may not simply just engage in drinking too much alcohol. Maybe they may wrestle with the spirit of busyness and be overworking themselves, doing too much, thinking, oh, I'm doing things that's good in life. I'm doing things that's worthy and worthwhile in life. I give to the poor every day. Every day I'm standing outside feeding the hungry. Every day I'm giving to this charity. Instead of just resting, every day I have a spirit of generosity. I'm working. And she says, people like that are just as bad in these behaviors that they're living as people who are engaging in other types of negative behaviors. She says, so in some sense, over-functioning, not taking a vacation, not resting is also a form of disconnection. When you feel like you got to do everything for everybody, when you feel like you got to be the main one always giving advice, when you feel like you need to always take on all of the responsibility in life, when you feel like you got to always be helping, always staying busy, just struggling to stay still. She says these are disconnecting behaviors as well. You might as well become addicted to cocaine or heroin or crack or become an alcoholic. You might as well engage in these type of behaviors because these over-functioning, overworking behaviors are just as bad as other types of behaviors. She says you might as well become sexually promiscuous because these behaviors are just as detrimental. Over-functioning, overworking is just as detrimental. So she says, in some sense, how do we reconnect? How do we reconnect? How do we find home? Go back home if our home was a healthy home, or recreate a healthy home if our home of origin was not a healthy home. How do we center ourselves back to a safe home? In some sense, she says we have to reconnect. We have to become self-aware of our disconnections and reconnect. During our Bible study time, we're going to be grappling with some particular biblical characters who found themselves trying to reconnect to home, right? Reconnect to home might look like the prodigal son reconnecting to home. Reconnecting to home might look like the children of Israel who are in Egypt, who tell Moses Hey, we need to reconnect to our home. We are enslaved in Egypt. This is not our home. Pharaoh needs to let us go. We need to reconnect to our home. We may be examining awesome Bible studies like Hagar and her desire to need to reconnect to home after being physically assaulted by Sarah and running out into a wilderness. We have to even grapple with Jesus, who is crucified on the cross, who desires to reconnect to home and no longer suffer on a cross. We have to grapple with biblical stories like Paul and Silas, who are imprisoned and desire to reconnect to home. We have to grapple with biblical stories like Esther, who is challenged to reconnect to home in some sense, right? The Bible is filled with tons of biblical stories of people who are desiring to reconnect to home, people who are feeling disconnected and homesick. And so I am so excited because as we kick off this Bible study, we're going to be talking about particular biblical characters who struggle with feeling disconnected and desire to reconnect to home. And we're also going to be looking at solution-focused therapies that our sister, Dr. Tama Bryant, highlights. So for today, as we begin to wrap up, there is our first solution-focused therapeutic strategy or intervention that our sister Tama Bryant recommends. Please, 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 I hope you have your pen and paper ready. I'm going to now allow us or have us or encourage us or invite us to hear from our sister, Dr. Tama Bryant. There is one strategy we're going to land the plane on talking about today. And feel free to share this video, right? Tell a friend. We're trying to help some people get free in the next month and a half, brothers and sisters. And so we want you to share this video and check out this awesome solution-based therapy that our beloved sister, Tama Bryant, is going to highlight for us on today. I'm going to share my screen and let us listen to this awesome solution-based therapy for today that our sister recommends.
So I want to give you one pointer on today about beginning the journey home. In psychology, there's something called solutions focused therapy. Solutions focused therapy. And that usually is a short term therapy for people who don't have years to dedicate to the process. And with solutions focused therapy, you look at the things that have worked for you in the past and you reinstitute them because many times in our stress and in our trauma, we forget the things that work. So you can rattle them off to me now. Like you don't need a whole workshop on things that feed your spirit, that feed your mind, that feed your heart. The reality is you haven't been doing them, right? So if I were to ask you, think about, and for each person is something different, right? Some people like hiking. Now that I'm living out in Los Angeles, everybody's talking about hiking. I want you all to know I grew up in Baltimore. So I don't know anything about hiking. That's not my thing. But it's a beautiful thing. I'm sure some people, that's what gets them home. Go out on the mountain and hike. So my thing won't be your thing necessarily, although it is nice to try new things because you may discover a new way home. But there are some old things that speak to you. For me, one of those things is dancing. What dance does for me, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, I really should dance every day, but I don't. But whenever I do, then I get reconnected, regrounded in myself, and it's a homecoming. That's my first language is in my movement. And so, for some of you, it will be meditation and prayer. For some of you, it is talking to, like, you might have that one good friend or that one aunt who always has all that wisdom. And when's the last time you called her? It may be a book of meditations, a spiritual book. It may be exercise, right? Get up out of that house. And I'm one of those people, I have to tell you all, I don't get excited to go to the gym, but once I go, I'm like, oh, this is great. I should, I should have been coming here. So, what are the things that nourish me? I'm going to even say around what we eat. There's a saying, your food affects your mood, right? And so sometimes we are digesting things, taking in things and people. Let me say that for the adults listening to the podcast. We take things and people into our temple that are destructive to our journey home. And so, what are the things that I can shift, that I can reimagine and reorganize my time so that I can do the things that bring me home to myself? So, this is going to be one of those rare podcasts that actually has homework because I don't just want you to listen, I actually want you to make it home to yourself. So, it's one thing for us to say yes or amen or ashe or whatever your affirmation is, and then you turn it off and go back to doing what you've been doing. But I want you to really consider making a commitment to yourself. What is something nurturing, nourishing that has fed you or nourished you in the past that you haven't done in a while? And something that it's in your capacity to do this week. So, somebody might say, oh, I went on a cruise, but I don't have any money. So that's not your thing, right? That's a long term goal. But I want something that you can commit to now in this season of what you will do this week before you listen to the next podcast, unless you're listening to them all in a row. Before the next one, a commitment you will make for solutions focused, psychological, therapeutic process. There's something that awakens me, and I'm going to get back to that. Howard Thurman, who's an African American theologian, no longer living, he has a quote that says, do the thing that makes you come alive because there are far too few people that are actually alive. And that is the truth. So do the thing this week, one thing that makes you come alive. I'm so glad you're on this journey with me. And I want to say in closing, after all you have survived, after everything you have endured, let today be the day your soul says to your mind, your heart, your body, and your spirit, welcome home.
Beloved, beloved, I want to encourage you. I don't know if you were able to hear her, but I want to encourage you. Please, please, please check out her particular podcast that she also put on YouTube. So if you're not familiar with podcasts and you weren't able to hear exactly what she was saying, then please, please, please check out her YouTube page, right? This video is on YouTube. So the strategies that she was giving, the particular theories or highlights she was just talking about, is on a YouTube video. It's about 28 minutes long, and it's known as, the title is here on your screen, Episode 1, Homesick and Disconnection from Ourselves. Homesick and Disconnection from Ourselves. I want to invite you, you can check out the video in its entirety. Episode 1, Homesick and Disconnection from Ourselves. The particular strategies that she gives, just to let you know, start at minute 22, minute 22 second. The minute is minute 22 at the 26th second. Let me say that again. Minute 22 and the second is the 26th second, if you want to fast forward right to that moment. Minute 22 and second 26. Okay. All right, family. So please go to YouTube and check out that. You can simply type in Tamar Bryant Episode 1, homesick and disconnection from ourselves, and this will pop up. Family, I have had a blast and I'm so excited about journeying into this book, and I can't wait for us to get into the beginning chapters. We have covered the introduction on today. So for homework, please check out chapter 1. We've went over the introduction for today. For homework, check out chapter 21, and that's where we're going to kick off on next Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope and pray as you enter into this journey of reconnection that you reflect on helpful, healthy strategies in your own life. Blessings to you, beloved. Blessings, blessings, blessings to you on today. Take care.